Clara Bennett's knees hit the frozen platform hard enough to bruise bone. The train was gone. Silas Crawford was gone. And the first snow of winter was falling on her bare head because somewhere between Pittsburgh and Montana she'd lost her bonnet and hadn't even noticed. Lily screamed against her chest, hungry cold, sensing her mother's terror. "Hush now, baby girl." Clara's voice cracked. "Hush. Mama's gonna figure this out." But she had $17, no husband, and a town full of strangers who were already staring. God help us, she thought, because no one else will. Yeah, if you want to know what happens to Clara and baby Lily, subscribe and stay with me until the end. Comment your city below. I love seeing where this story travels. "Ma'am, you can't stay here." Clara looked up at the station master. Thin man, spectacles, uncomfortable expression. "I'm waiting for someone." "Silas Crawford." Her stomach dropped. "You know him." "Everyone knows him, ma'am." The station master wouldn't meet her eyes. "He left yesterday, took the stage to Oregon." "That's impossible. We're to be married. I have his letters." "He's gone." Lily wailed louder. Clara stood on shaking legs, her daughter pressed tight against her chest. "Where's the sheriff's office?" "Down Main Street." "But ma'am..." Clara didn't wait for him to finish. The sheriff was a thick man with a gray mustache and tired eyes. He looked up when Clara pushed through his door, took in her disheveled appearance, and sighed. "You're the mail-order bride." "I'm Clara Bennett. I understand Silas Crawford left something for me." Sheriff Tucker pulled an envelope from his desk. $20 and a letter. Clara tore it open. "Miss Bennett, our arrangement cannot proceed. Enclosed funds should cover your return journey. S. Crawford, $20. She'd sold her mother's wedding ring for that train ticket." "Ma'am, you all right?" "No." Clara folded the letter with steady hands. "I'm not all right, but I will be." She wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of this man. "Is there lodging in town?" "Silver Creek Inn, but..." The sheriff hesitated. "But what?" Mrs. Harwell's particular about her guests." "Particular how?" He nodded at Lily. "She don't take kindly to babies. Or women without husbands." Clara's jaw tightened. "I see. There's a boarding house on Miller Street. Mrs. Garcia. She might..." "Thank you, Sheriff." She left before he could say more. Mrs. Garcia was a small woman with hard eyes and work-roughened hands. "You Crawford's bride?" "I was." "Word travels." Mrs. Garcia looked at Lily. "That your baby or your niece?" Clara was tired of lying, tired of pretending. "My daughter." Mrs. Garcia studied her for a long moment. $2, one night, gone by noon tomorrow." "Why only one night?" "Because by morning, Cordelia Whitmore will know you're here." Mrs. Garcia stepped aside to let her in. "And when that woman decides you're trash, this whole town treats you like trash." Clara walked past her. "Who's Cordelia Whitmore?" "Banker's wife, runs the ladies' auxiliary. Thinks she runs everything else too." Mrs. Garcia shut the door. "Room's upstairs. Don't make noise." Clara fed. Lily changed her and sat on the narrow bed as darkness fell. $17. One night of shelter. A baby who needed milk and warmth and safety. What are my options? Go back to Pittsburgh. She couldn't afford the ticket. And even if she could, what waited for her there? The boarding house that had hidden her shame. The factory where Thomas Aldridge's family still wielded power numb. She couldn't go back. Stay here. In a town where women like her were trash. Find work somewhere else. With what money? With what references? Lily gurgled in her arms, reaching up to touch Clara's face. "I know, baby girl." Clara kissed her daughter's palm. "I know. Mama will figure something out. She always did. She had to. Morning brought a note under her door. Cannot extend room. Please vacate by noon. M. Garcia. Clara found the landlady in the kitchen. You said noon. That was before Mrs. Whitmore visited. Mrs. Garcia wouldn't look at her. I'm sorry, I can't afford trouble. What did she say? That respectable establishments don't harbor women of loose morals. Clara's hands balled into fists. I'm not. I know what you're not. Mrs. Garcia finally met her eyes. I had a sister once. Same situation. Different town. I know. She pressed something into Clara's hand, a wrapped bundle. Bread and cheese. For the road. Clara stared at her. Why help me if you're throwing me out? Because I'm a coward. Mrs. Garcia's voice was bitter. Because I have a business to protect. Because this world punishes women for surviving and rewards men for running away. She opened the back door. Go. Before someone sees. The cold hit Clara like a fist. She walked down Main Street with Lily bundled against her chest looking for work. Any work. The general store, not hiring. The restaurant, no positions available. The dress shop, try elsewhere. Each rejection was polite. Each one came with the same sliding glance at Lily, at Clara's bare ring finger, at the absence of a man beside her. By noon she had tried every business on Main Street. By noon she understood. This town had already decided what she was. Clara sat on a bench outside the church and watched the snow fall. Lily had finally stopped crying, exhausted into silence. Clara's arms ached from carrying her. Her feet were numb. Her stomach was hollow. Just a little longer, baby, she whispered. Mama just needs to think. But her mind was blank, empty as her pockets, cold as the wind cutting through her thin coat. This is how it ends, she thought. Frozen on a bench because a man I never met decided I wasn't worth the trouble. You planning to sit there till you freeze? Clara looked up. A man stood over her, tall, broad shoulders, dark hair under a battered Stetson, a few days of beard on a hard jaw, eyes gray as the winter sky, and just as cold. I'm fine. No, you ain't. He didn't crouch down to her level, didn't soften his voice. You're the woman Crawford left at the station. Does everyone in this town know my business? Pretty much. He crossed his arms. You got somewhere to go. That's none of your concern. It is if you freeze to death on church property. His voice was flat, impatient. I don't need a corpse complicating my Sunday mornings. Clara stared at him. Are you always this charming? Are you always this stubborn? Yes. Then we understand each other. He held out a hand. Elijah McAllister. I own a ranch outside town. Clara didn't take his hand. Good for you. His jaw tightened. Look, I ain't asking for your life story. I'm asking if you've got somewhere to sleep tonight. Why do you care? I don't. He dropped his hand. But my mother raised me not to leave women and babies to freeze. You want help or not? Lily chose that moment to cry a thin, hungry wail that cut through Clara's pride like a knife. She looked at her daughter, looked at this hard-faced stranger, looked at the empty street where no one else had stopped. What kind of help? I've got an empty cabin on my property. You can stay tonight. Figure out your next move tomorrow. And what do you want in return? His eyes narrowed. What do you think I want? I think every man who offers help wants something. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, you're right, they do. He pulled off his gloves and handed them to her. But I ain't every man. Put those on before your fingers fall off. Clara looked at the gloves, worn leather, still warm from his hands. Why are you doing this? Because my mother would haunt me if I didn't. He turned toward a wagon at the edge of the street. You coming or not? Clara stood, her legs nearly buckled. Fine, but I'm not grateful. Didn't ask you to be. The wagon ride was silent. Eli, she refused to call him Mr. McAllister. It gave him too much power, kept his eyes on the road. Didn't make small talk, didn't ask questions, didn't offer comfort. Clara found it oddly refreshing. "How far is your ranch?" 5 miles. That's a long way from town. That's the point. Lily fussed in her arms. Clara bounced her gently humming under her breath. "She hungry?" Eli asked without looking over. "Probably." "There's food at the ranch." More silence. The horse's hooves crunched through the snow. "You don't talk much," Clara said finally. "Nope." "Any particular reason?" "Don't have much to say." "Or you're just bad at conversation." He glanced at her the first time he'd looked directly at her since the bench. "You always this prickly. You always this rude." "Yes." Despite everything, Clara almost smiled. "Then we understand each other." Something flickered in his gray eyes. Not warmth exactly, but not hostility either. "Cabin's got a stove," he said, turning back to the road. "Wood stacked outside. Should be provisions in the kitchen. And tomorrow you decide what you want to do. What if I want to stay?" He was quiet for a moment. "Then we'll talk about that tomorrow." The cabin was small, but solid. Eli carried her carpet bag inside, lit a fire in the stove, and stood awkwardly by the door. "Main house is up the hill. Mrs. Santos lives there. She cooks for the hands. If you need something tonight, she can help." "I won't need anything. Suit yourself." He put his hat back on. "I'll check on you in the morning." "You don't have to." "I know." He opened the door. "Do it anyway." He was gone before Clara could respond. She explored the cabin with Lily in her arms. One room with a table and 2 chairs. A small kitchen with a cast-iron stove. A bedroom with a narrow bed, and Clara's throat tightened a wooden crib in the corner. Why would a bachelor rancher have a baby's crib? None of your business, she told herself. You're here for one night. Don't get curious. But she was curious. She was always curious. It had gotten her into trouble before. Clara fed Lily from the provisions Eli had mentioned. Tinned milk bread, a jar of applesauce that looked homemade. She ate standing up, too tired to sit watching the fire throw shadows on the walls. Who is Elijah McAllister? A rancher who rescues stranded women. A lonely man looking for company. A predator with a gentle approach. She'd known men like the last kind. Smooth words and patient hands waiting for the right moment to strike. But Eli wasn't smooth. He was rough as sandpaper, rude, impatient, and he'd given her his gloves. Clara looked at them now, sitting on the table where she'd dropped them. Worn leather, practical, the kind of gloves a man earned, not bought. Stop it, she told herself. One act of kindness doesn't make him safe. Nothing made anyone safe. Morning came gray and cold. Clara woke to the sound of chopping wood outside. She rose, splashed water on her face, and peered through the frost-covered window. Eli was splitting logs behind the cabin, his breath fogging in the air. He worked with efficient, brutal strokes, no wasted movement, no pause for rest. He'd been at it a while, judging by the pile. Clara pulled on her dress, checked that Lily was still sleeping, and stepped outside. You didn't have to do that. Eli didn't look up. Stove eats wood fast. You'd have run out by noon. I could have chopped my own. In that dress. He finally glanced at her. You'd freeze before you finished. Clara crossed her arms. I've done harder work than chopping wood. I don't doubt it. He buried the axe in the stump and straightened. You eat? Not yet. There's coffee in the main house. Breakfast, too. I'm not hungry. You're lying. He pulled on his coat. Come on. Mrs. Santos makes good biscuits. I don't. You've got a baby to feed. His voice cut through her protest. That means you need to eat. Stop being stubborn and come get breakfast. Clara wanted to argue. Wanted to assert her independence, prove she didn't need his charity. But Lily would wake soon hungry and demanding, and Clara couldn't remember the last time she'd had a real meal. Fine. Good. He started walking. Try to keep up. The main house was warm and smelled like bacon. Mrs. Santos was a round woman with silver-streaked hair and shrewd dark eyes. She looked Clara up and down, then nodded once. Sit. Eat. Clara sat. A plate appeared in front of her: eggs, bacon, biscuits, gravy. More food than she'd seen in weeks. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Mrs. Santos poured coffee. You might be gone by noon. Clara's hand froze over her fork. What? Eli doesn't keep people around. Mrs. Santos sat across from her. Hasn't since Maggie died? Who's Maggie? The kitchen door banged open. Eli stood there, snow on his shoulders, irritation on his face. Rosa, stop gossiping. I'm not gossiping. I'm informing. It's the same thing. It's not. Mrs. Santos pushed a plate toward him. Sit. Eat. Let the girl finish her breakfast in peace. Eli sat, but his eyes stayed on Clara. Wary. Guarded. Who was Maggie Clara? Filed the question away for later. After breakfast, Eli walked her back to the cabin. Mrs. Santos talks too much. She mentioned someone named Maggie. Eli's jaw tightened. She shouldn't have. Who was she? None of your business. You're right. Clara stopped at the cabin door. Just like my past is none of yours. He stared at her. She stared back. Fair enough, he said finally. So what happens now? Now I go work. You stay here with your baby. Tonight we talk about whether you're leaving or staying. And if I want to stay, then we figure out an arrangement. He started to turn away, then stopped. The crib in the bedroom. It was mine, and my sister's. Our father made it. Clara's throat tightened. Why is it here? Because I thought. He stopped, started again. Doesn't matter why. It's there if you need it. He walked away before she could respond. Clara spent the day exploring the ranch. Not far, she kept the cabin in sight. Lily bundled warm in her arms, but enough to understand what kind of operation Eli ran. Cattle in the distance, a solid barn, a bunkhouse where she could hear men laughing. Everything well-maintained, practical, no nonsense, like its owner. You must be the new arrival. Clara turned. An old man approached, weathered face, kind eyes, a limp in his left leg. I'm Jed Tanner, foreman. Clara Bennett. I know. He nodded at Lily. Pretty baby. Thank you. Eli tell you about the job? Clara frowned. What job? Jed's eyebrows rose. He didn't mention it. We need a cook. Mrs. Santos is getting on in years. Can't handle all the meals anymore. He shrugged. Figured that's why he brought you here. He brought me here because I was freezing on a bench. That too, probably. Jed studied her. You can cook? Yes. Then seems like a good fit to me. He tipped his hat. Think about it, Miss Bennett. Ain't many options for women in your situation. This one's better than most. He walked away, leaving Clara with more questions than answers. That evening, Eli knocked on the cabin door. Come in. He entered hat in hand, looking uncomfortable. Jed said he talked to you. He mentioned a job. I was going to bring it up tonight. Eli sat in one of the chairs, his long legs stretched toward the fire. Didn't want you to think I had expectations. What kind of expectations? The kind you accused me of yesterday. Clara sat across from him, Lily sleeping in her arms. You're offering me a job. Room board, fair wage. You cook for the hands, help Mrs. Santos with the house. He met her eyes. Nothing more. Why? Why what? Why help me? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Eli was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled. Wind rattled the windows. "My mother took in a woman once," he said finally. "Young girl, pregnant, no husband. Town wanted to run her out." His voice was flat, careful. "Ma said a person's worth isn't measured by their worst mistake. She gave that girl a home, helped her get back on her feet." "What happened to her?" "She left eventually, started over somewhere else, wrote my mother letters for years after." He looked at Clara. "I was 8 years old, but I never forgot how my mother stood up to everyone who said she was wrong." Clara's chest ached. "She sounds like a good woman." "She was the best woman I ever knew." A pause. "Until I met another one who reminded me of her." Clara didn't ask who. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. "I'll take the job," she said instead. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "I work for my keep, no charity. Everything I receive I earn. Fair. Lily stays with me. If that's a problem, it's not. And if anyone suggests I'm here for improper reasons, I leave. Immediately. No arguments." Eli nodded slowly. "Anything else?" Clara hesitated. Then, "Tell me about Maggie." His face went blank, closed off. "That's not part of the deal." "I'm not asking as part of the deal. I'm asking because I'm going to live here, work here, trust you with my daughter's safety." Clara leaned forward. "I need to know who you are, Eli McAllister. The real you. Not just the rancher who rescues stranded women." The silence stretched. Clara thought she'd pushed too far. Then Eli spoke. "Maggie Sullivan, rancher's daughter from the next county. We were engaged 3 years ago." His voice was rough. "She died 2 weeks before the wedding. Diphtheria. I'm sorry." "Don't be. You didn't know her." He stood abruptly. "I'll have Mrs. Santos prepare a room in the main house. You can move in tomorrow." Eli. "Get some sleep, Clara. Tomorrow's going to be busy." He was out the door before she could say another word. Clara lay awake that night, Lily warm beside her, the fire dying to embers. Eli McAllister had loved someone, lost someone, closed himself off from everyone since. "Until you," a voice whispered. "Until he saw you on that bench." "No." Clara shut the thought down. He rescued her because of his mother. Because of old guilt and older promises. Not because she was special. She wasn't special. She was a woman with a baby and no options, taking whatever shelter she could find. "Don't make it more than it is," she told herself. "Don't be stupid again." But as she drifted toward sleep, she couldn't stop thinking about the crib in the corner. The one Eli's father had made. The one Eli had kept all these years. Who were you saving it for, she wondered. And why is it here in this cabin waiting for a baby you never expected to have? 1 week later, Clara had settled into life at Blackwater Ranch. She rose before dawn to start breakfast, fed the hands at 6, cleaned the kitchen, helped Mrs. Santos with laundry and mending, prepared dinner, fell into bed exhausted every night. It was hard work, harder than the factory in Pittsburgh, harder than the boarding house. But it was honest work, and for the first time in years, Clara felt useful. The hands warmed to her quickly, mostly because of her cooking. "Miss Clara, these biscuits could make a man weep," Tommy Brennan said one morning, his young face earnest. "Then stop talking and eat," she replied, hiding her smile. Jed was gruffer but no less appreciative. "Haven't eaten this good since my wife passed. You keep cooking like this, we might not let you leave." Only Eli remained distant. He came to meals, ate in silence, and left without comment. When their paths crossed during the day, he was polite but brief. No more evening conversations. No more questions about her past or his. Clara told herself it was better this way. She almost believed it. The trouble came on a supply run. Clara had been at Blackwater 2 weeks when Mrs. Santos declared they needed provisions from town. You should go, the older woman said. Let people see you. Show them you're not hiding. Clara wanted to refuse, but Mrs. Santos was right. If she was going to build a life here, she couldn't hide forever. 2. The general store was quiet when Clara entered Lily in her arms. She moved through the aisles, selecting flour sugar coffee. Normal things. Safe things. Well, well. Clara's shoulders tensed. She knew that voice. Cordelia Whitmore stood behind her dressed in expensive black silk, her face arranged in false concern. Mrs. Whitmore, I heard you'd found employment. The word dripped with implication. At the McAllister Ranch. How fortunate for you. Yes, I'm their cook. Is that what they're calling it now? Clara's grip tightened on her basket. I don't know what you mean. Of course you don't, dear. Mrs. Whitmore stepped closer, lowering her voice. But I know exactly what you are. A woman who couldn't keep her virtue. Who got caught with a bastard child. Who came west looking for some fool to support her. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. Mrs. Whitmore's smile was ice. I know your kind, and I know that Elijah McAllister is too decent a man to see through your act. My act. Playing the victim, the poor abandoned bride, the helpless mother. Mrs. Whitmore laughed softly. It's quite convincing, but I've seen women like you before. You attach yourselves to decent men, drain them dry, and move on to the next. Clara's voice shook with fury. You know nothing. I know that baby isn't any niece. Mrs. Whitmore's eyes were sharp, triumphant. I know you've been lying since you arrived, and I know it's only a matter of time before Eli McAllister discovers exactly what kind of woman he's harboring. Is there a problem here? Both women turned. Eli stood in the doorway, his face unreadable, his eyes fixed on Mrs. Whitmore. Mr. McAllister. Cordelia's tone shifted to sugar. I was just welcoming your new cook to town. Didn't sound like a welcome. I'm sure you misheard. I don't mishear. Eli moved to Clara's side. And I don't appreciate people insulting my employees. Insulting you were simply leaving. Eli's voice hardened. Now. Mrs. Whitmore's face flushed with anger. You're making a mistake, Mr. McAllister. This woman is not what she seems. Neither are you, Mrs. Whitmore. But I don't go around announcing it in public. He took Clara's basket from her hands. We're done here. He guided Clara out of the store, his hand warm and steady on her back. They didn't speak until they reached the wagon. You didn't have to do that, Clara said. Yes, I did. She's going to make trouble for you now. She was always going to make trouble. Eli lifted her basket into the wagon. Cordelia Whitmore has been looking for reasons to hate me for years. This just gives her a new one. Why does she hate you? Because I won't sell her husband my land. Because I don't bow to her social games. Because... He stopped. Because what? Because I was engaged to her daughter's rival. And when Maggie died, Cordelia saw it as divine justice. His voice was bitter. She's a small, mean woman who wraps her cruelty in righteousness. Don't let her get to you. Clara stared at him. She said things about me. About Lily. I know. Things that might be true. Eli went still. What do you mean? Clara took a breath. She'd known this moment would come, had dreaded it. But after what he'd just done for her, she owed him the truth. Lily isn't my niece. Her voice was steady, even as her heart raced. She's my daughter. Her father was a man who promised me marriage and abandoned me when I told him I was pregnant. Eli's expression didn't change. I lied to Silas Crawford, told him Lily was my orphaned niece. I hoped he wouldn't care once he met us. Clara laughed bitterly. I was wrong. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the truth. Because Mrs. Whitmore is going to spread this all over town. Because, Clara's voice cracked. Because if you want me to leave, I'd rather know now than later. Eli was silent for a long moment. Then he held out his hand to help her onto the wagon. Get in. Eli. I said get in. Clara took his hand, climbed up, sat rigid beside him as he took the reins. They drove in silence for a mile, 2 miles, 3. Finally, Eli spoke. My mother's father was a drunk who beat his wife. My father fought for a cause that lost. I've got more skeletons than a graveyard. He glanced at her. You think I'm going to judge you for surviving the best way you knew how? Clara's throat closed. You're not angry. I'm angry that someone hurt you. I'm angry that you had to lie to survive. I'm angry that women like Cordelia Whitmore get to sit in judgment while men like Lily's father walk free. His hands tightened on the reins. But I'm not angry at you. I could never be angry at you. Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks before she could stop them. Thank you. Don't thank me. Eli looked straight ahead. Just cook dinner. The hands get cranky when they're hungry. Clara laughed through her tears. And for the first time since Pittsburgh, she let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, she had finally found somewhere to belong. They arrived back at the ranch as the sun was setting. Eli helped her down from the wagon, and for a moment they stood closer than they'd ever been. Clara? Yes. What Mrs. Whitmore said about you attaching yourself to men draining them dry. I would never. I know. His eyes held hers. I knew that the moment I saw you on that bench ready to freeze rather than beg. You're not the kind of woman who takes. You're the kind who gives until there's nothing left. Clara couldn't breathe. Eli. I'm not good with words. His voice was rough. Never have been. But I want you to know whatever happens, whatever that woman tries to do, you have a home here. You and Lily. For as long as you want it. Why? You know why. He turned and walked toward the barn, leaving Clara standing in the snow, with her heart pounding and her mind spinning. She did know why. She'd known since he gave her his gloves on that frozen bench. The question was, what was she going to do about it? That night, Clara put Lily to bed and sat by the window watching the snowfall. She'd come to Montana looking for safety, security, a fresh start. She hadn't expected to find something more. A knock at her door made her jump. Miss Clara, Tommy's voice urgent. You better come quick. Clara opened the door. What's wrong? Ryder just came from town. Tommy's face was pale. Mrs. Whitmore's been talking, telling everyone about you and Lily. The whole town's buzzing. Clara's blood went cold. What are they saying? That you're a fallen woman, that Eli's been fooled, that... Tommy swallowed. That someone ought to run you out before you corrupt the whole county. Clara gripped the doorframe. Where's Eli? In the barn, but Miss Clara... She was already running. Eli was saddling his horse when she found him. You heard, he said without turning. Where are you going? Town. I'm going to have a conversation with Mrs. Whitmore. Eli, don't. You'll only make it worse. It can't get worse. He yanked the cinch tight. She's been spreading lies about you all afternoon. By tomorrow, every ranch in the county will have heard. Then let them hear. Clara grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. You think I care what these people think? I've survived worse than gossip. You shouldn't have to survive anything else. That's not your choice to make. They stood there breathing hard, his arm warm under her fingers. I can't just do nothing, Eli said finally. I can't just let her destroy you. She won't destroy me. I won't let her. Clara's voice steadied. But if you ride into town like an avenging angel, you'll prove every nasty thing she's saying, that I've got you wrapped around my finger, that you've lost your judgment over some fallen woman. I don't care what they think. I care. Clara's hand moved to his chest, pressing flat over his heart. I care because you're a good man, and you deserve better than to have your reputation ruined over me. Clara, let me fight this my way. Please. Eli stared at her conflict warring in his gray eyes. What's your way? I don't know yet. She smiled slightly. But I'll figure it out. I always do. For a moment she thought he would argue, would push past her and ride into town anyway. Then he exhaled slowly and lowered the reins. Fine. But if anyone tries to hurt you, I'm done waiting. Fair enough. She started to pull away. He caught her hand. Clara. Yes. I meant what I said earlier about you having a home here. His thumb traced circles on her palm. About knowing why. Clara's heart hammered. Eli? I'm not asking for anything, not expecting anything. He stopped, started again. I need you to know that whatever happens tomorrow, my feelings won't change. Your feelings. You know what I mean. She did. God help her, she did. Get some sleep, she whispered. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. She pulled free and walked back to the cabin without looking back, but she felt his eyes on her the whole way. Clara didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window watching the snow fall, planning her next move. Cordelia Whitmore wanted a war. Fine. Clara had survived men who made promises they never intended to keep, survived a town that turned its back on her, survived 2,000 miles of fear and hope and heartbreak. She could survive one bitter woman with too much power and too little compassion. But as dawn broke gray and cold over Blackwater Ranch, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something worse than gossip. Something that would change everything. She just didn't know what. Mrs. Santos found her in the kitchen at first light. You look terrible. Thank you. That's very kind. I'm not kind. I'm honest. The older woman poured 2 cups of coffee and sat across from Clara. Heard about the trouble in town? News travels fast. It does when Cordelia Whitmore's involved. Mrs. Santos sipped her coffee. That woman's got a tongue like a whip and a heart like a stone. She's been trying to destroy this family for years. Why? Because she can't control them. Because Eli won't bow to her. Because... Mrs. Santos hesitated. Because what? Because her daughter wanted Eli. Still wants him if the rumors are true. Mrs. Santos met Clara's eyes. Prudence Whitmore has been throwing herself at that man since Maggie died. He won't look twice at her. Clara's stomach tightened. And now I'm here. Now you're here. Looking like everything Cordelia hates, strong, independent, surviving without her approval. Mrs. Santos smiled grimly. You're a threat, Clara, not because of what you've done, but because of what you represent. What do I represent? That a woman can make it without men like Cordelia's husband, without society's blessing, without anyone's permission. Mrs. Santos reached across the table and gripped Clara's hand. That terrifies her. And Cordelia Whitmore destroys things that terrify her. Clara stared at the older woman. How do I fight that? You don't, not directly. Mrs. Santos squeezed her hand. You survive. You thrive. You show this whole county that their gossip can't break you. She stood. Now make breakfast. The hands are hungry and nothing defeats hatred like a good biscuit. Despite everything, Clara laughed. The morning passed in a blur of cooking and cleaning. Clara kept busy refusing to think about what was being said in town, what Cordelia Whitmore might be planning. She was elbow-deep in bread dough when the sound of horses made her look up. Through the kitchen window, she saw riders approaching. 3 of them, moving fast. Her hands stilled. Mrs. Santos. The older woman came to stand beside her. I see them. Who are they? Mrs. Santos's face was grim. Trouble. The riders reached the main house just as Eli emerged from the barn. Clara wiped her hands and moved to the window watching. The lead rider dismounted. A woman. Tall, dark-haired, dressed in expensive riding clothes. Even from this distance, Clara could see the family resemblance. Cordelia Whitmore, Mrs. Santos confirmed. And her daughter Prudence. And... She sucked in a breath. That's Sheriff Tucker. Clara's blood turned to ice. The sheriff. This isn't gossip anymore. Mrs. Santos gripped her arm. Stay here. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe. But stay here. Mrs. Santos hurried outside, leaving Clara alone in the kitchen with a half-kneaded lump of dough and a heart full of dread. Through the window, she watched them argue. She couldn't hear the words. But she saw Eli's face go dark with fury. Saw Mrs. Whitmore gesture toward the house. Saw the sheriff shift uncomfortably, his hand resting on his gun. Then Eli looked directly at her window and shook his head. Stay inside, his expression said. Don't come out. Clara gripped the counter, trembling. What was happening? The argument continued for several minutes. Finally, the sheriff mounted his horse and rode away. Mrs. Whitmore followed, but not before looking at the house with an expression of pure triumph. Prudence lingered, saying something to Eli that made his jaw clench. Then she too was gone. Eli stood alone in the yard, staring after them. When he finally came inside, his face was carved from stone. What happened? Clara demanded. What did she want? She's filing a complaint. Eli's voice was flat. Claims you're a vagrant and an unfit mother. She wants Lily taken away. The floor dropped out from under Clara's feet. No. The word came out strangled. No, she can't. She can try. Eli caught her arms as she swayed. Clara, look at me. Look at me. She looked. His gray eyes were fierce, determined. I won't let her take Lily. Do you hear me? I won't let her take either of you. How can you stop her? She has money influence. And I have something better. His grip tightened. I have the truth, and I have you. Clara stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? Why are you fighting for me? Because you're worth fighting for. His voice cracked. Because He stopped, swallowed hard. Because I'm not going to watch another good woman be destroyed while I stand by and do nothing. Another good woman. Maggie. He was fighting for Clara because he couldn't save Maggie. It should have hurt being a substitute. A second chance at redemption. Instead, it made Clara love him more. What do we do? She whispered. We fight. Eli released her arms but didn't step back. Together. Clara wiped her face with shaking hands. Together, she agreed. Outside, the wind picked up, driving snow against the windows. A storm was coming, and Clara had no idea if they would survive it. The next 3 days were the longest of Clara's life. She went through the motions, cooking, cleaning, caring for Lily, while her mind spun with worst-case scenarios. Every time she heard hoofbeats, her heart stopped. Every knock at the door made her clutch Lily tighter. Eli barely left the ranch. He canceled a cattle drive, postponed meetings, invented reasons to stay close to the main house. Clara knew he was watching over her, protecting her, and she didn't know whether to feel grateful or guilty. You can't put your whole life on hold for me, she told him on the third morning. I'm not putting anything on hold. You canceled the drive to Bozeman. Weather's bad anyway. Eli. He looked up from his coffee, his gray eyes weary. What do you want me to say, Clara? That I should ride off and leave you here alone while Cordelia Whitmore plots to steal your daughter? I want you to stop pretending this is normal. It's not normal. He set down his cup. Nothing about this is normal. A woman He stopped, tried again. Someone under my protection is being threatened. I'm not going to apologize for taking that seriously. Clara wanted to ask what he'd been about to say. A woman, yet what care about need love. But Mrs. Santos chose that moment to bustle in with news from town. "Whitmore's been busy," the older woman announced, dropping into a chair. "She's got half the ladies' auxiliary convinced you're a danger to public morality. The other half are afraid to speak up." "What about the men?" Eli asked. "Most don't care one way or another. They've got cattle to tend and winter to survive. But the ones who do care, the church elders, the town council, they're listening to her." Clara's stomach churned. "What does that mean?" "It means there's going to be a hearing." Mrs. Santos's face was grim. "Next week. The county judge is coming through on his circuit. Cordelia's petitioned him to rule on your fitness as a mother." The room tilted. Clara gripped the edge of the table. "She can't do that," she whispered. "She doesn't have the authority. She's got money and connections. Out here, that's better than authority." Mrs. Santos reached across and squeezed her hand. "But it's not over yet. You've got friends, too." "Who?" "Doc Crane, for one. He delivered half the babies in this county, including Prudence Whitmore. He's not pleased about this nonsense." "That's one man against a whole town. One man with a good reputation is worth 10 with money." Mrs. Santos looked at Eli. "And you've got something else Cordelia doesn't have." "What's that?" "The truth." Eli nodded slowly. "Rosa's right. Cordelia's case is built on gossip and assumption. She doesn't have any real evidence that you're unfit." "She knows about Lily's father," Clara said. "She knows I lied about Lily being my niece." "So you made a mistake. You were desperate. Any judge worth his salt will understand that." "And if he doesn't," Eli's jaw tightened, "then we appeal. We fight. We do whatever it takes." Clara looked at him. This man who had pulled her from the cold, given her a home, stood beside her when everyone else turned away. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why are you doing all this?" "You know why." "Say it." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Eli opened his mouth to answer, and the front door crashed open. Tommy Brennan stumbled in, snow-covered and breathless. "Boss, you need to come quick. There's trouble at the south pasture. Fence is down and cattle are scattering." Eli was on his feet instantly. "How bad?" "Bad. Storm brought down a whole section. We're losing head by the minute." Eli grabbed his coat, then hesitated, looking back at Clara. "Go," she said. "I'll be fine." "I don't want to leave you. Your ranch needs you. Go." He held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded once and was gone. Clara sat alone in the kitchen listening to the wind howl and wondered if she'd ever get to hear him say the words she needed to hear. The storm lasted 2 days. Clara spent them helping Mrs. Santos with household tasks, caring for Lily, and trying not to worry about Eli and the hands out in the brutal cold. When they finally straggled back, exhausted, frostbitten but alive, she had hot food and warm blankets waiting. "You're an angel," Tommy said through chattering teeth. "She's practical," Jed corrected. "Which is better?" Eli said nothing, but the look he gave her as she pressed a cup of coffee into his frozen hands spoke volumes. "How bad was it?" she asked quietly. "Lost 12 head. Could have been worse." He wrapped both hands around the cup. Would have been worse if Tommy hadn't spotted the break when he did. "You look terrible." "Feel worse." But he almost smiled. "Missed your cooking. I saved you some stew." "Clara." He caught her wrist as she turned toward the stove. "I'm sorry I had to leave." "You had a ranch to save." "I had—" He stopped, glancing around at the hands gathered in the kitchen. "We should talk, later, when things settle." "Later?" she agreed, though her heart was racing. Later came sooner than expected. Clara was putting Lily to bed that night when she heard a knock at her door, a small room off the main house that Mrs. Santos had prepared for her. "Come in." Eli entered, freshly washed and changed, his dark hair still damp. He looked 10 years younger without the frost and exhaustion weighing him down. She asleep? Clara nodded, tucking the blanket around Lily. Finally, the storm scared her. Scared all of us. He leaned against the doorframe watching her with those gray eyes. You did good while we were gone. Rosa said you handled everything. I've handled worse. I know you have. He paused. That's not what I came to talk about. Clara straightened, her pulse quickening. Then what? The hearing. It's in 5 days. Her stomach dropped. I know. We need to prepare. Figure out what Cordelia's going to say and how to counter it. Is that all you came to talk about? Eli was silent for a moment. Then he pushed off the doorframe and moved closer. No, it's not. He stopped an arm's length away, close enough that Clara could see the pulse beating in his throat. 3 days ago, you asked me why I'm doing all this. I didn't answer. You were interrupted? I was afraid. The admission seemed to cost him. I've been afraid since the day I met you. Clara frowned. Afraid of what? Of this. He gestured between them. Of feeling something again. Of wanting something I swore I'd never want. Eli, let me finish, please. She nodded, barely breathing. When Maggie died, I shut down. Locked everything away. Told myself it was easier to feel nothing than to risk that kind of pain again. His voice was rough. And it worked. For 3 years it worked. Then you showed up on that bench with your baby and your pride and your stubborn refusal to give up, and everything I'd locked away came flooding back. Clara's eyes stung with tears she refused to shed. I'm not Maggie. I know you're not. That's not... He exhaled sharply. I'm not trying to replace her. I'm not trying to find someone who reminds me of her. You're nothing like her, Clara. Maggie was soft where you're hard, gentle where you're fierce. She never would have survived what you've survived. Then why? Because you made me feel alive again. He took another step closer. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it's like to hope, to want, to imagine a future that's more than just surviving from one day to the next. Clara's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. Eli, I don't know if I can, I'm not asking for anything. His hand came up, hovering near her face without touching. I just needed you to know, before the hearing, before whatever happens next. I needed you to know that you're not just someone I'm protecting out of duty or obligation. What am I then? You're the woman I love. The words fell between them like stones into still water, sending ripples through everything Clara thought she knew. You can't, she whispered. You don't know me. Not really. Not all of it. Then tell me. Whatever it is, tell me. Clara turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. Lily's father, Thomas Aldridge. He was the son of my mother's employer. He courted me for months after my mother died. Told me he loved me. Told me we'd be married as soon as he convinced his parents. And you believed him. I was 18 and alone and desperate for someone to care about me. Her voice cracked. So yes, I believed him. I let him, I gave him... She couldn't finish. He used you, Eli said flatly. He took what he wanted and threw me away. Clara faced him, tears streaming down her face now. When I told him about the baby, he called me a whore. Said I must have been with other men. Said his family would destroy me if I tried to claim he was the father. Son of a bitch. His mother had me dismissed without a reference. I couldn't find work anywhere in the city. The only place that would take me was a boarding house for fallen women, and even they made me work in the kitchen where no one could see my shame. Clara. I'm not finished. She wiped her face with shaking hands. I answered Silas Crawford's advertisement because I was desperate. Because I thought any man who wanted a wife badly enough to order one from a catalog wouldn't ask too many questions. I lied about Lily being my niece because I knew no decent man would marry a woman with a bastard child. She laughed bitterly. Turns out, even an indecent man wouldn't marry me. Silas Crawford was a fool and a coward. Maybe, or maybe he was the only honest one. He saw what I really was and ran. Eli crossed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hands cupped her face thumbs, wiping away her tears. "What you really are," he said, "is the strongest woman I've ever met. What you really are is a mother who did whatever she had to do to protect her child. What you really are is someone who deserves love and happiness, and a home, not judgment from small-minded people who've never faced half of what you've faced." "You don't?" "I do." His forehead touched hers. "I do know you, Clara. I've seen you work until your hands crack. I've seen you comfort your daughter in the middle of the night. I've seen you stand up to Cordelia Whitmore without flinching. I've seen you laugh and cry and fight and hope. That's not—" "Let me finish." His voice gentled. "I've seen you look at me like you're afraid to believe anything good can last, and I understand why, and God knows I understand, but I'm asking you to try. I'm asking you to let me prove that not every man is like Thomas Aldridge or Silas Crawford." Clara was trembling. "What if I can't? What if I'm too broken to love anyone?" "You're not broken." He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "You're scarred. There's a difference. Scars mean you survived." She stared at him, this rough, quiet man who had given her shelter and safety and something she hadn't dared name until this moment. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I. What if Cordelia wins? What if they take Lily?" "They won't." "But what if they do? Then I'll fight for you. I'll sell this ranch if I have to. I'll hire every lawyer in the territory. Clara kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't calculated. One moment she was listening to him promise impossible things, and the next her mouth was on his, and nothing else mattered. He went still for half a heartbeat. Then his arms came around her, pulling her close, and he kissed her back with a desperation that matched her own. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eli rested his forehead against hers again. "Does this mean you believe me?" "It means I want to." Clara's voice was barely a whisper. "It means I'm going to try." "That's enough." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "For now, that's enough." They stood there in the dim light of her small room, holding each other while Lily slept peacefully in her crib, and the wind howled outside. Tomorrow they would plan for the hearing. Tomorrow they would face Cordelia Whitmore and all her venom. But tonight, just for tonight, Clara let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she had finally found something worth fighting for. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Doc Crane came out to the ranch, a grizzled man in his 60s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. He examined Lily thoroughly while Clara watched with barely concealed anxiety. "Healthy as a horse," he pronounced. "Well-fed, well-cared for. Whatever nonsense Cordelia's spouting about neglect is exactly that nonsense." "Will you testify?" Eli asked. "Already planning on it." Doc Crane snapped his bag closed. "I've known Cordelia Whitmore for 30 years. I delivered both her children. And I can tell you this. That woman has no business judging anyone else's fitness as a mother." Clara looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Doc Crane and Eli exchanged a glance. "Tell her," Eli said. The doctor sighed. "It's not common knowledge, but Cordelia's son, her firstborn, wasn't born quite as respectably as she'd like people to think." Clara frowned. "I don't understand." Cordelia married Horace Whitmore in April of 1859. Their son was born in October of the same year. Doc Crane's expression was grim. "Now I'm no mathematician, but that's a mite short for a full-term baby." The implication hit Clara like a thunderbolt. She was pregnant before they married. She was indeed, and Horace Whitmore wasn't the father, not of the first one anyway. But he had money, and she had a problem, so they came to an arrangement. "How do you know this?" "Because I was the one who delivered the baby, and I was the one who kept my mouth shut when Cordelia asked me to." Doc Crane's jaw tightened. I've regretted that silence every day since. That woman has spent 40 years punishing other women for the same sin she committed, all while pretending to be pure as driven snow. Clara sank into a chair, her mind reeling. Why hasn't anyone exposed her? Because she's rich. Because her husband controls the bank. Because people are afraid of her. Eli's voice was hard. But not anymore. If she wants to drag your past into the open, we'll drag hers right alongside it. You can't. Clara shook her head. If you expose her, she'll retaliate. She'll destroy you both. Let her try. Eli, this isn't a game. She has power. So do we. He crouched down in front of her, taking her hands. The truth is power, Clara. And right now, we've got more of it than she does. Clara looked at Doc Crane. You'd really testify against her after keeping her secret all these years. I should have spoken up a long time ago. The doctor's voice was heavy with regret. Maybe if I had, she wouldn't have become the monster she is today. Maybe other women wouldn't have suffered because I was too cowardly to tell the truth. You weren't cowardly. You were protecting a patient. I was protecting myself. Doc Crane picked up his bag. But not anymore. I'll see you both at the hearing. After he left, Clara sat in silence, trying to process everything she'd learned. Cordelia Whitmore was a hypocrite, a fraud, a woman who had built her entire identity on moral superiority while hiding the same shame she condemned in others. This changes things, she said finally. It does. She'll be humiliated if this comes out. She deserves to be humiliated. Clara looked at Eli. I don't want to win by destroying her. I just want to keep my daughter. Sometimes you can't do one without the other. He sat beside her. Cordelia's not going to back down just because we ask nicely. She's coming for you with everything she has. The only way to stop her is to hit back harder. That's not who I want to be. Then who do you want to be? Clara was quiet for a long moment. Someone Lily can be proud of. Someone who fought fair even when her enemies didn't. Eli studied her face. You're a better person than me. I'm not. I'm just tired of hate. Tired of people tearing each other down. She reached for his hand. If we use her secret against her, we become exactly what she says we are: cruel people who destroy lives for our own benefit. So what do you suggest? We tell the truth about me. All of it. We don't hide, don't make excuses, don't apologize for anything except the lies I told to survive. Clara's voice steadied. And we let the judge decide based on facts, not gossip. And if he decides against you, then at least I'll know I did the right thing. Eli was silent for a long time. Then he lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. You're something else, Clara Bennett. Is that good or bad? It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. The morning of the hearing dawned cold and clear. Clara, dressed in her best dress, a simple blue cotton that Mrs. Santos had helped her alter, and pinned her hair up with steady hands. Lily gurgled happily in her crib, oblivious to the battle about to be fought over her future. No matter what happens today, Clara told her daughter, I love you. Everything I've done, I did for you. Lily reached up and grabbed Clara's nose, making her laugh despite her nerves. Ready. She turned to find Eli in the doorway, dressed in a dark suit that made him look like a different man, older, more distinguished, almost handsome in a rough-hewn way. No, she admitted. But I don't think I'll ever be ready. Then let's get it over with. The ride to town was quiet. Clara held Lily in her arms, watching the snow-covered landscape pass by, trying not to think about what might happen if things went wrong. Clara. Eli's voice broke through her thoughts. Whatever happens in there, I want you to know. Don't. She looked at him. Don't say goodbye. Not yet. I wasn't going to say goodbye. He reached over and took her hand. I was going to say I'm proud of you. No matter what that judge decides, nothing changes how I feel. Clara squeezed his hand, unable to speak, around the lump in her throat. The town square was crowded when they arrived, more people than Clara had ever seen in Silver Creek. Word of the hearing had spread apparently, and everyone wanted to watch the spectacle. Cordelia Whitmore stood on the courthouse steps, dressed in black silk, her daughter Prudence beside her. She smiled when she saw Clara, a cold, triumphant smile that made Clara's blood run cold. "Miss Bennet," Cordelia's voice carried across the square, "how brave of you to show your face." "Mrs. Whitmore," Clara kept her voice calm, "how brave of you to attack a woman and her child." Cordelia's smile faltered. "I'm not attacking anyone. I'm protecting this community from what a mother who loves her daughter, a woman who works hard and causes no trouble." Clara took a step closer. "Tell me, Mrs. Whitmore, what exactly am I threatening? Your very presence is a threat to public morality. My presence, not my actions, not anything I've actually done." Clara met the other woman's eyes. "You're afraid of me, aren't you? Not because of who I am, but because of who you used to be." Cordelia went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." For a moment, something flickered in Cordelia's eyes, fear maybe, or recognition. Then Eli stepped forward, his hand on Clara's elbow. "We should go inside." Clara nodded and let him guide her past Cordelia, past the watching crowd, into the cool darkness of the courthouse. The judge was already seated, a weary-looking man with white hair and sharp eyes. He watched as Clara and Eli took their places on one side of the room, Cordelia and her entourage on the other. "This hearing will come to order," he said, his voice carrying easily. "We're here to consider a petition filed by Mrs. Cordelia Whitmore regarding the fitness of one Clara Bennet to retain custody of her daughter, Lily Bennet." He looked at Cordelia. "Mrs. Whitmore, you may present your case." Cordelia rose, smoothing her skirts. "Your Honor, I come before you today not out of malice, but out of genuine concern for a helpless child." Clara's hands clenched in her lap. "Miss Bennet arrived in our town under false pretenses, claiming to be a mail-order bride while concealing the fact that she has a child born out of wedlock. She has since taken up residence at the ranch of Mr. Elijah McAllister, a single man in circumstances that can only be described as improper." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. "Furthermore," Cordelia continued, "Miss Bennet has demonstrated a pattern of deception and moral failure that calls into question her ability to raise a child in a Christian manner. I ask this court to consider whether such a woman should be entrusted with the welfare of an innocent baby." She sat down, looking satisfied. The judge turned to Clara. "Miss Bennet, how do you respond?" Clara stood on legs that trembled only slightly. "Your Honor, everything Mrs. Whitmore said about my past is true." Gasps filled the room. Eli started to rise, but Clara shook her head. "I did have a child out of wedlock. I did lie about Lily being my niece. I did come to Montana, hoping to start over to give my daughter a chance at a better life." She paused, gathering her courage. "But I am not unfit to be her mother. I have worked every day since Lily was born to provide for her. I have kept her fed, clothed, and healthy, despite circumstances that would have broken most people. I have never neglected her, never harmed her, never done anything except love her with everything I have." Clara turned to look at Cordelia. "Mrs. Whitmore calls me a threat to public morality. But what is more moral, a woman who made a mistake and fought to survive, or a woman who sits in judgment of others while hiding her own sins?" Cordelia's face went white. "I won't expose your secrets, Mrs. Whitmore. I won't stoop to the tactics you've used against me. But I will say this. You have no right to decide who is fit to be a mother. None of us do. Only God can make that judgment, and I don't believe He condemns women for surviving the best way they know how." Clara faced the judge again. "Your Honor, I'm asking you to see past the gossip and the scandal. Look at my daughter. Look at how healthy she is, how happy. That's not the work of an unfit mother. That's the work of someone who would do anything to protect her child." She sat down, her heart pounding. For a long moment the courtroom was silent. Then Doc Crane stood up. "Your Honor, if I may." The judge nodded. "Dr. Crane, you may speak." Doc Crane walked to the front of the courtroom, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. He didn't look at Cordelia. He looked straight at the judge. "Your Honor, I've been the only doctor in Silver Creek for 32 years. I've delivered every baby born in this town since 1855. I've treated every illness, mended every broken bone, and closed the eyes of more people than I care to count." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Yesterday I examined Lily Bennett. That child is healthy, well-nourished, and clearly loved. There is no evidence, none whatsoever, of neglect or mistreatment. Miss Bennett has done an exemplary job caring for her daughter under circumstances that would have defeated most women." "That's not what's at issue here," Cordelia interrupted. "The question is whether, Mrs. Whitmore, you will have your turn," the judge said sharply. "Continue, Dr. Crane." "Thank you, Your Honor." Doc Crane finally turned to look at Cordelia. "The question Mrs. Whitmore wants this court to consider is whether Miss Bennett's moral character makes her unfit to raise a child. She speaks of public morality, of Christian values, of protecting the innocent." His voice hardened. "But I wonder, Mrs. Whitmore, if you'd like this court to examine your own moral character with the same scrutiny." Cordelia's face went rigid. "How dare you?" "I dare because I've stayed silent too long." Doc Crane faced the judge again. "Your Honor, I have information relevant to this case. Information that speaks directly to Mrs. Whitmore's fitness to sit in judgment of other women." "This is outrageous!" Cordelia was on her feet. "Your Honor, Dr. Crane is attempting to deflect." "Sit down, Mrs. Whitmore." The judge's voice was ice. "Dr. Crane, what information?" Clara's heart was pounding. She had asked them not to do this, had begged them to fight fair. But Doc Crane was already speaking. "In October of 1859, I delivered Mrs. Whitmore's first child, a boy, full term by all appearances. So Mrs. Whitmore married Mr. Horace Whitmore in April of that same year, 6 months before the birth." Silence crashed through the courtroom like a wave. Cordelia stood frozen, her face the color of ash. "You're lying," she whispered. "I'm not lying, and you know it." Doc Crane's voice was weary. "I kept your secret for 40 years, Cordelia. Watched you destroy other women for the same sin you committed. Watched you preach morality while living a lie. You have no proof. I have my medical records, dated and signed. They show exactly when I first examined you, exactly how far along you were, exactly when that baby was born." Cordelia swayed on her feet. Prudence grabbed her arm, looking horrified. "Mother, is it true?" "Of course it's not true. This man is a liar and a—" "Mrs. Whitmore." The judge's voice cut through her protests. "I'm going to ask you directly. Were you with child before your marriage to Mr. Whitmore?" The courtroom held its breath. Cordelia's mouth opened, closed, opened again. That is, the circumstances were—" "A simple yes or no will suffice." Clara watched the other woman crumble. Watched 40 years of carefully constructed superiority collapse in an instant. She should have felt triumph, vindication. Instead, she felt only pity. "Yes," Cordelia whispered. "Yes, I was." The courtroom erupted. Clara stood pushing through the noise and walked toward Cordelia. Eli tried to stop her, but she shook him off. "Mrs. Whitmore?" Cordelia looked up, her eyes wild with humiliation and fury. "What do you want? Come to gloat? No." Clara's voice was quiet, meant only for the two of them. "I came to say I'm sorry." "Sorry?" "I didn't want this. I asked them not to expose you." Cordelia stared at her. "Why?" "Because I know what it's like to have your worst moment become public property. Because destroying you doesn't help me. Because—" Clara took a breath. "Because we're not so different, you and I." We both made mistakes. We both tried to survive. The only difference is, you had money to hide yours." Tears were streaming down Cordelia's face now. "You don't understand. If people knew, if they found out, they know now. And you're still standing." Clara reached out and touched the other woman's arm. "You can survive this. I did. I've been so cruel to you." "Yes, you have. Why are you being kind?" Clara thought about it. About all the hatred she could have felt, all the revenge she could have wanted. "Because someone was kind to me when I didn't deserve it," she said finally. "And it changed everything." She turned and walked back to her seat, leaving Cordelia standing alone in the wreckage of her reputation. The judge called for order. "Given the revelations of this hearing," he said, "I'm prepared to make my ruling." Clara gripped Eli's hand so hard her knuckles went white. "Mrs. Whitmore, your petition is denied. There is no evidence that Miss Bennet is an unfit mother. In fact, the evidence suggests quite the opposite. She has provided excellent care for her daughter under extremely difficult circumstances." Relief flooded through Clara like warm water. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "I find it deeply troubling that this petition was brought at all. Mrs. Whitmore, you have used this court to persecute a woman whose only crime was surviving the same situation you once found yourself in. That is not justice. That is hypocrisy." Cordelia flinched as if struck. "Miss Bennet, you are free to go. Your daughter remains in your custody, and I will note for the record that any future attempts to question your fitness as a mother should be dismissed out of hand." "Thank you, Your Honor." Clara stood on shaking legs. Eli's arm came around her, steadying her. "It's over," he murmured. "It's over." But as they turned to leave, Cordelia's voice stopped them. "Miss Bennet." Clara looked back. Cordelia stood alone now. Prudence had fled. The crowd had pulled away from her like she was contagious. I owe you an apology." "You don't owe me anything." "I do." Cordelia's voice cracked. "I spent 40 years punishing other women because I hated myself. I thought if I could prove I was better than them, it would erase what I'd done. It doesn't work that way. I know that now." Cordelia wiped her face with a trembling hand. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I wanted you to know I'm going to withdraw from the Ladies' Auxiliary, from all of it. I'm going to stop." Clara studied her for a long moment. "That's a start." "It's all I have." "Then make it count." Clara turned and walked out of the courthouse, Eli beside her. Lily sleeping peacefully in her arms. The crowd parted to let them through. Some people nodded respectfully. Others looked away, ashamed of how they'd treated her. Clara didn't care about any of them. She was free. The ride back to the ranch was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than before. Lighter, easier. "You did something remarkable in there," Eli said finally. "I didn't do anything. Doc Crane." "Not that. After." He looked at her. "You showed her mercy, after everything she did to you." Clara stared down at Lily, at her daughter's peaceful face. What would it have accomplished to be cruel? She's already lost everything. Her reputation, her power, her daughter's respect. Adding my hatred to that wouldn't have helped anyone. Most people wouldn't see it that way. I'm not most people. Eli smiled a real smile, the first she'd seen from him all day. No, you're not. They reached the ranch as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Mrs. Santos rushed out to meet them, her face anxious. Well, what happened? We won, Eli said simply. Mrs. Santos burst into tears and pulled Clara into a fierce hug. I knew it. I knew that witch wouldn't win. God is good. God had help from Doc Crane, Clara said, laughing despite herself. Same thing. Mrs. Santos released her and reached for Lily. Let me take this little one. You two need to talk. Before Clara could protest, Mrs. Santos had whisked Lily away toward the house, leaving Clara alone with Eli in the fading light. She's not subtle, Clara observed. Never has been. Eli took her hand. Walk with me. They walked in silence for a while, past the barn, past the bunkhouse, up a small hill that overlooked the valley. The ranch spread out below them, peaceful and prosperous. I've been thinking, Eli said. About what? About what happens now. Clara's heart stuttered. What do you mean? The hearing's over. Cordelia's defeated. You're free to do whatever you want. He turned to face her. The question is, what do you want? Clara looked at him. This man who had saved her, protected her, loved her without asking for anything in return. I want to stay, she said. Here, with you. As what? What do you mean? I mean, he took a breath. I mean, I don't want you to stay as my cook. I don't want you to stay as my employee. I want... What do you want, Eli? I want you to stay as my wife. The words hung in the air between them, glowing like embers. You're asking me to marry you. I'm asking you to spend your life with me, to build something together, to raise Lily as our daughter legally properly with my name and my protection. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Eli. I know it's soon. I know we've only known each other a few weeks, but I've spent the last 3 years feeling nothing, wanting nothing, and then you came along and... His voice broke. And I don't want to waste any more time. Life's too short, too uncertain. You really want this? A wife with a scandalous past? A daughter who isn't yours by blood? I want you, both of you. That's all that matters. Clara reached up and touched his face. His jaw was rough with stubble, his skin warm despite the cold. I don't have anything to give you, she whispered. No dowry, no family, no connections. You have yourself. That's more than enough. I'm difficult, stubborn. I argue about everything. I know. I like it. I'm scared, Eli. Scared of trusting again. Scared of being hurt. So am I. He covered her hand with his. But I'm more scared of letting you go. Clara laughed through her tears. That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Is that a yes? She looked at him, really looked at him. At the hope in his gray eyes. At the love he didn't try to hide. At the future he was offering her wide open and full of possibility. Yes, she said. Yes, Eli McAllister, I will marry you. He kissed her, then pulling her close. His arms wrapping around her like he would never let go. Clara melted into him, tasting tears and joy and the promise of something she'd never dared to hope for. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Eli rested his forehead against hers. We should tell Mrs. Santos. She probably already knows. She probably planned this. Clara laughed. She definitely planned this. They walked back to the house, hand in hand, and Clara felt lighter than she had in years. The weight she'd been carrying since Pittsburgh, the shame, the fear, the constant vigilance was finally lifting. She wasn't naive enough to think all her problems were solved. There would still be whispers in town. Still people who judged her. Still challenges she couldn't foresee. But she wouldn't face them alone. And that made all the difference. Mrs. Santos cried when they told her. Then she cried again. Then she started planning the wedding. Spring, she declared. After the thaw. We'll have it in the meadow behind the house. I'll make my mother's tamales. We'll invite the whole county. The whole county hates me, Clara pointed out. The whole county will learn to love you. And if they don't, they won't eat. Clara couldn't argue with that logic. The weeks that followed were the happiest of Clara's life. She fell into a rhythm at the ranch, cooking, cleaning, caring for Lily, spending evenings with Eli by the fire. The hands treated her with warmth and respect, and even the townspeople who had shunned her began to thaw. Cordelia Whitmore, true to her word, had withdrawn from public life. Clara saw her once at the general store, and the other woman had nodded politely before moving on. Not friends, perhaps, but no longer enemies. Doc Crane became a regular visitor to the ranch, checking on Lily and sharing meals with the family. He and Eli had been friends for years, Clara learned, bound by shared loss and mutual respect. He delivered Maggie when she was born, Eli told her one night. Treated her through her final illness, held my hand at her funeral. He's a good man. The best I know. Eli paused. Except maybe one other. Who? Jed. He's been with me since the beginning, since before my father died. He's more family than employee. Clara thought about the gruff foreman who said little but saw everything. He approved of me, didn't he? From the start. He did. Said you had steel in your spine. Eli smiled. He was right. As winter deepened, so did Clara's love for her new life. She learned the rhythms of the ranch, the early mornings, the hard work, the quiet satisfaction of building something that would last. She learned Eli, too. His silences and his smiles, his fierce protectiveness and his gentle humor. The way he held Lily like she was made of glass, the way he looked at Clara like she was the answer to a prayer he'd forgotten he'd made. She learned that love wasn't always grand gestures and passionate declarations. Sometimes it was a cup of coffee brought without asking, a hand on the small of her back, a laugh shared over burned biscuits. Sometimes love was simply showing up day after day, choosing the same person over and over again. One night, in late January, Clara woke to find Eli's side of the bed empty. She found him on the porch, staring at the stars, his breath fogging in the cold air. Couldn't sleep? She asked, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Bad dream. About what? He was quiet for a moment. Maggie, the day she died. Clara moved to stand beside him, not touching, just present. Tell me. I was holding her hand. She was burning up with fever, couldn't even recognize me by the end. But she kept saying my name, over and over, like she was looking for me. His voice cracked. I told her I was there. I told her I loved her. I told her to hold on, that the doctor was coming, that she was going to be fine. He exhaled shakily. She died believing I'd save her, and I couldn't. Eli. For 3 years I carried that guilt. Told myself I didn't deserve to be happy. Didn't deserve to love anyone again. He finally looked at her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Then you came along, and I realized she wouldn't want me to punish myself forever. She'd want me to live. Clara took his hand. She sounds like she loved you very much. She did. And I loved her. Part of me always will. I know. Does that bother you? Clara considered the question carefully. No, it doesn't. Loving Maggie doesn't diminish what you feel for me. It just means you have a big heart. Eli pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. How did I get so lucky? You weren't lucky. You made a choice. She pulled back to look at him. You saw a woman on a bench alone and scared, and you chose to help her. Everything else followed from that. Best choice I ever made. Second best. What was the first? Clara smiled. Asking me to marry you. He laughed a real laugh, full and warm, and kissed her under the stars. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, watching their breath mingle in the cold air. Tomorrow, there would be work to do. Cattle to feed. Hands to manage. A wedding to plan. But tonight there was only this. 2 broken people healing each other. 2 lonely hearts finding home. The winter wore on, harsh and unforgiving. But inside the ranch house, there was only warmth. Clara's belly began to swell in February. She didn't realize what it meant at first, attributed the nausea to something she'd eaten, the exhaustion to the demands of ranch life. But Mrs. Santos took one look at her and knew. You're pregnant. Clara stared at her. That's impossible. Is it? Mrs. Santos raised an eyebrow. You've been married to a healthy man for 2 months. You share a bed every night. What part is impossible? Clara sat down heavily, her mind racing. I hadn't thought. Clearly. But Mrs. Santos was smiling. This is good news, mija. A blessing. Eli, I have to tell Eli. Tell me what? Clara looked up. Eli stood in the kitchen doorway, stomping snow off his boots. Tell me what? He repeated, concern creeping into his voice. Clara, what's wrong? Mrs. Santos slipped out of the room with suspicious speed. Nothing's wrong. Clara took a breath. I'm pregnant. Eli went very still. You're pregnant? Yes. We're going to have a baby? Yes. For a long moment, he didn't move. Didn't speak. Clara's heart began to pound with fear. Eli, please say something. He crossed the kitchen in 3 strides, lifted her out of her chair, and spun her around, laughing like a man half his age. We're having a baby, Rosa. Did you hear? We're having a baby? Mrs. Santos appeared in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. I heard, mijo. The whole county probably heard. Eli set Clara down, his hands framing her face. Are you happy? Are you? Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He kissed her long and deep. I never thought after Maggie, I never thought I'd have this. A wife, a family, a future. You have all of it now. I have everything now. He pulled her close, his hand settling protectively over her still flat stomach. I love you, he said. I love Lily. I'll love this baby. I'll love every child we ever have. I'll love you until my last breath and beyond. Clara buried her face in his chest, tears soaking through his shirt. I love you too, she whispered. More than I ever thought I could love anyone. They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, while Mrs. Santos cried happy tears and Lily played on the floor, oblivious to the joy surrounding her. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but inside, there was only spring. The news of Clara's pregnancy spread through the ranch like wildfire. Tommy was the first to congratulate them, his young face bright with genuine joy. A baby! That's the best news we've had all winter, Miss Clara. Boss, you're gonna be a pa. I'm already a pa, Eli said, pulling Lily into his arms. This one's been mine since the day I brought her home. The words hit Clara like a wave of warmth. She'd heard him say it before, but somehow it meant more now in front of the hands, with another child growing inside her. Jed was quieter in his congratulations, but his handshake lasted longer than usual. Your mother would be proud, he told Eli. She always wanted grandchildren running around this place. She'd have loved Clara. She would have. Jed looked at Clara with something like respect. You're good for him. I wasn't sure at first, but I am now. What changed your mind? The way he laughs. Jed's weathered face softened. Haven't heard him laugh like that since before Maggie died. Figured anyone who could bring that back was worth keeping around. Clara didn't know what to say. She settled for squeezing Jed's arm and blinking back tears. The pregnancy changed things. Eli became impossibly protective, hovering over Clara like she might shatter at any moment. He insisted she stop carrying heavy pots. Insisted she rest in the afternoons. Insisted she let Mrs. Santos take over the more demanding kitchen tasks. I'm pregnant, not dying, Clara told him, after he tried to stop her from reaching for a high shelf. You're carrying my child. Our child. I'm not taking any chances. Eli women have been having babies since the beginning of time. We're remarkably sturdy. I don't care about other women. I care about you. His stubbornness was infuriating. It was also, Clara had to admit, deeply touching. Fine, she relented. But if you try to carry me up the stairs one more time, I'm sleeping in the barn. I was helping. You were being ridiculous. Same thing. Despite their bickering, or maybe because of it, their love deepened. Clara found herself reaching for Eli's hand without thinking. Found herself sharing thoughts she'd never spoken aloud. Found herself trusting in a way she'd thought impossible. "I didn't know it could be like this," she told him one night lying in the dark with her head on his chest. "Like what?" "Easy. Safe." She traced patterns on his skin. "I spent so long expecting the worst from everyone, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Now I catch myself being happy, and I have to remind myself it's allowed." Eli's arm tightened around her. "It's allowed. It's more than allowed." "I know. It's just hard to believe sometimes. What can I do to help you believe?" Clara thought about it. "Just keep being you. Keep showing up. Keep loving me even when I'm difficult." "That's easy. The difficult part is my favorite." She laughed and kissed him, and for a while they didn't talk at all. March brought the first signs of spring. The snow began to melt, revealing brown earth and the first stubborn shoots of green. The cattle grew restless, sensing the change in season. The hands worked longer hours preparing for calving season and the demands it would bring. Clara's wedding dress arrived from Denver, a gift from Eli's sister Hannah. The note attached was warm and welcoming. "Dear Clara," Hannah had written, "I can't wait to meet the woman who finally thawed my brother's frozen heart. This dress was our mother's. Eli told me you had nothing from your own family, so I thought you might like something from ours. Welcome to the McAllisters. Love, Hannah." Clara held the dress, ivory silk, simple but elegant, and wept. "What's wrong?" Eli asked, alarmed by her tears. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right." She showed him the note. "Your sister sent me your mother's wedding dress." Eli's face went soft. "Hannah, I can't wear this. It's too precious." "You can wear it. You should wear it." He touched the fabric gently. "Ma would have wanted you to. Hannah knows that." "But what if I ruin it? What if—" "Clara." He cupped her face in his hands. "You're going to be a McAllister. That means this dress is yours now. All of it, the history, the love, the family. It's yours." She couldn't speak, could only nod and cry and let him hold her. Hannah arrived a week before the wedding. She was smaller than Clara expected, with Eli's gray eyes and a warm smile that seemed permanently fixed on her face. She swept into the house like a spring breeze, hugging everyone in sight. "You must be Clara." Hannah pulled her into a fierce embrace. "You're more beautiful than Eli described. He said you were pretty, but you're gorgeous." "I thank you." "And this is Lily." Hannah scooped up the toddler, who squealed with delight. "Oh, she's perfect. Eli, she has your stubborn chin." "She's not mine by blood. Blood doesn't make family. Love does." Hannah kissed Lily's cheek. "You're mine now, little one. Aunt Hannah's going to spoil you rotten." Clara watched her future sister-in-law with wonder. "You're not at all what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone more reserved." "Eli's so quiet." Hannah laughed. "Eli got all the silence in the family. I got all the words. Our mother used to say we balanced each other out." She set Lily down and took Clara's hands. "I'm so glad he found you. I was worried he'd spend the rest of his life alone, punishing himself for something that wasn't his fault." "Maggie's death." "Yes." Hannah's smile dimmed. "I loved Maggie like a sister, but she's been gone 3 years, and Eli's been gone almost as long, until you brought him back." "I didn't do anything. He brought himself back." "You gave him a reason to." Hannah squeezed her hands. "That's everything." The days before the wedding were a whirlwind of preparation. Mrs. Santos cooked enough food to feed an army. Hannah handled decorations and logistics. Clara tried to help, but everyone kept shooing her away. "Rest," Mrs. Santos insisted. "You're growing a baby. That's work enough." "But I feel useless." "You'll feel useful tomorrow when you walk down that aisle and make an honest man of my boss." Mrs. Santos pointed toward the stairs. "Go. Nap. That's an order." Clara went through she didn't nap. Instead, she sat in the room she shared with Eli, looking at her mother's wedding dress, Hannah's gift, and thinking about everything that had led her to this moment. A year ago, she'd been in Pittsburgh pregnant and terrified with no hope and fewer options. 6 months ago, she'd been on a train to Montana chasing a promise that turned out to be empty. 3 months ago, she'd been sitting on a frozen bench waiting to die when a rough-voiced cowboy had offered her his gloves. Now she was about to marry that cowboy, about to become a mother again, about to build a life she'd never dared to imagine. "Ma," she whispered to the empty room. "Pa, I wish you could see this. I wish you could meet him." There was no answer, of course. But Clara felt something, a warmth, a presence, a sense that somehow, somewhere they knew, and they were proud. The wedding day dawned clear and bright. Clara woke to find Eli's side of the bed empty, a note on his pillow. "Tradition says I can't see you before the ceremony. Hannah's rules, not mine. I'll be counting the minutes until you're my wife. E." Clara smiled and pressed the note to her heart. Getting ready took hours. Hannah did her hair, weaving wildflowers through her curls. Mrs. Santos helped her into the dress, fussing over every button and fold. Lily toddled around in a tiny white dress of her own, clearly pleased with all the attention. "You look beautiful," Hannah said, stepping back to survey her work. "Eli's going to faint." "He better not. I need him conscious to say his vows." "He'll manage, barely." Hannah kissed her cheek. "Welcome to the family, Clara. I always wanted a sister. You're getting one whether you like it or not." "I like it, very much." The ceremony was held in the meadow behind the house, just as Mrs. Santos had planned. It seemed like half the county had turned out, ranchers and townsfolk, friends and neighbors, even a few people who had shunned Clara when she first arrived. She didn't care about any of them. She only cared about the man waiting at the end of the aisle. Eli looked transformed in his black suit. His dark hair tamed, his jaw clean-shaven for the first time since she'd known him. But his eyes were the same gray as storm clouds, warm as summer rain, and they never left her face as she walked toward him. "You're beautiful," he murmured when she reached him. "You're biased." "Doesn't make it less true." The Reverend cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" The ceremony was simple and brief. Clara barely heard the words, something about love and commitment and the bonds of holy matrimony. All she could focus on was Eli's hand in hers, solid and warm and real. "Do you, Elijah McAllister, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." No hesitation, no doubt. "Do you, Clara Bennett, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife." The Reverend smiled. "You may kiss the bride." Eli kissed her like they were alone, like there weren't 100 people watching. Clara forgot to be embarrassed, forgot to be proper, forgot everything except the feeling of his lips on hers, and the knowledge that this was forever. The crowd erupted in cheers. "Mrs. McAllister," Eli said against her mouth. "Mr. McAllister." "I like the sound of that." "So do I." The reception was a blur of congratulations and food and dancing. Clara's feet ached, her face hurt from smiling, but she'd never been happier. Even Cordelia Whitmore made an appearance, standing at the edge of the crowd, uncertain of her welcome. Clara noticed her and, after a moment's hesitation, walked over. "Mrs. Whitmore, thank you for coming." Cordelia looked surprised. "I wasn't sure I should. After everything—" "The past is the past." Clara extended her hand. "We can start fresh if you're willing." Cordelia stared at her hand for a long moment. Then slowly she took it. "I don't deserve your kindness." "Maybe not. But I've learned that kindness isn't always about deserving." Clara squeezed her hand and released it. "There's food and dancing. You're welcome to stay." She walked away before Cordelia could respond, but she felt the other woman's eyes on her back, full of something that might have been gratitude. Or maybe hope. The dancing lasted until well past midnight. Clara swayed in Eli's arms, exhausted but unwilling to stop. "We should go to bed," he murmured. "Not yet. I want to remember every moment of this." You'll have plenty of moments to remember. We have our whole lives. I know, but this one is special. She looked up at him. This is the moment everything changed. The moment I became yours. You were always mine, from the first day. You didn't know that then. Yes, I did. He kissed her forehead. I knew the second I saw you on that bench. I just needed time to admit it. Clara smiled and rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. This was her life now. This man, this ranch, this family. She had come to Montana expecting nothing. She had found everything. Spring turned to summer. Clara's belly grew round and heavy, the baby kicking at all hours. Lily started calling Eli Papa, a development that made him cry the first time and smile every time after. The ranch thrived under Eli's careful management, the cattle healthy and multiplying. Life settled into a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. But Clara had one more thing she needed to do. I want to write to him, she told Eli one evening. Thomas Aldridge, Lily's father. Eli went very still. Why? Not to reconnect, not to ask for anything. Clara stared out the window at the setting sun. I just need him to know that he didn't destroy me, that his cruelty didn't win. You don't owe him anything, Clara. I know. This isn't about what I owe him. It's about what I owe myself. She turned to face her husband. I've been carrying his power over me for years. Every time I felt ashamed of Lily's origins, every time I flinched at the word bastard, he won a little more. I need to take that power back. Eli was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Write your letter. I'll post it myself. Clara worked on the letter for 3 days. She wrote and rewrote, crossing out phrases, starting over. When she finally finished, it was barely a page long. Mr. Aldridge, she read aloud to Eli. I don't expect you to remember me. I was one of many foolish girls who believed your lies. But I want you to know what became of me after you discarded me like garbage. I have a daughter. Her name is Lily, and she is the most beautiful, precious thing in my life. I have a husband who loves me and treats me with respect. I have a home, a family, a future. Everything you tried to take from me, I rebuilt with my own hands. I am not writing to ask for anything. Not money, not acknowledgement, not apology. I am writing to tell you that you have no power over me anymore. You are nothing to me. Less than nothing. I will never think of you again. Clara McAllister. She looked at Eli. Is it too much? It's perfect. I'm not even sure I should send it. You should. You need to. Eli took her hand. You're not the scared girl who ran from Pittsburgh. You're Clara McAllister now. It's time Thomas Aldridge knew what that means. Clara sealed the letter and handed it to him. It felt like setting down a weight she'd been carrying for years. The baby came in early August on the hottest day of the summer. Clara had been feeling strange all morning, restless, uncomfortable, unable to settle. Mrs. Santos took one look at her and sent Tommy to fetch Doc Crane. It's time, mija. That baby's coming. It can't be time. I still have 2 weeks. Babies don't read calendars. Mrs. Santos guided her toward the bedroom. Come, let's get you comfortable. The labor was long and hard. Clara gripped Eli's hand until her knuckles went white, crying out with each contraction. He stayed beside her the whole time, wiping her brow, murmuring encouragement, refusing to leave, even when Doc Crane suggested he wait outside. I'm not going anywhere, Eli said. I was there when this baby was made. I'll be there when it's born. 12 hours later, Clara gave one final push, and a new voice filled the room. It's a boy, Doc Crane announced, holding up the squalling infant. A healthy, angry boy. Clara collapsed against the pillows, laughing and crying at once. Eli cut the cord with shaking hands, his face wet with tears he didn't bother to hide. "A son," he whispered. "We have a son." Doc Crane placed the baby in Clara's arms. She looked down at the red, wrinkled face, the tiny fists, the rosebud mouth, and fell in love all over again. "Hello, little one," she murmured. "Welcome to the world." "What's his name?" Mrs. Santos asked, tears streaming down her face. Clara looked at Eli. They'd discussed names for months, never quite settling on one. "James," Eli said softly, "after my father." "James McAllister." Clara tested the name. "It's perfect." Eli leaned down and kissed her forehead, then the baby's, then her lips. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Thank you for my son, for my daughter, for my life. Thank you for giving me something to live for." They stayed like that, the three of them, while the sun set outside and the ranch settled into evening quiet. A family, Clara thought. A real family. She'd spent so long believing she didn't deserve one. Now she knew better. Little James grew fast, a healthy, happy baby who rarely cried and always smiled. Lily adored him, hovering over his crib, bringing him toys, singing the songs Clara had taught her. She took her role as big sister, seriously glaring at anyone who got too close to her baby. "She's going to be a handful when she's older," Eli observed, watching Lily boss around a ranch hand 3 times her size. "She already is," Clara smiled. "I'm so proud of her. She gets it from you, that fire. She gets it from both of us." Clara leaned against him. "She's ours, Eli, in every way that matters." She always was. As autumn approached, bringing cooler weather and the promise of change, Clara found herself thinking about the future, not with fear as she once had, with hope. "I've been thinking," she told Eli one evening. "About what? About the women who are where I was a year ago. Alone, scared, with no one to help them." She paused. "I want to do something for them." Eli looked at her with interest. "What did you have in mind?" "A place. Somewhere they can come when they have nowhere else to go. Somewhere safe, where they won't be judged." Clara's voice grew stronger. "I know what it's like to be desperate. I know what it's like to have everyone turn their backs. If I can spare other women that pain, then we should." Just like that. Just like that. Eli smiled. "You want to help people. I have land and resources. Seems like a good match to me." Clara threw her arms around him. "I love you." "I know." He held her tight. "I love you too, more every day." They started planning that night. A house, a refuge, a place of new beginnings. Clara didn't know it yet, but this dream, this simple desire to help, would become something far greater than she ever imagined. The refuge took shape, slowly built from hope and hard work, and the donations that began trickling in once word spread about Clara's mission. They called it Haven House. It started small, just an old cabin on the far edge of the McAllister property, renovated and expanded with Eli's money and the hands' labor. Clara spent every spare moment planning, organizing, preparing for the women who would eventually come. "You're working too hard," Eli told her one evening, finding her bent over lists and budgets at the kitchen table. "There's so much to do." "There always will be. That doesn't mean you have to do it all at once." He took the papers from her hands. "James is asking for you. So is Lily. So am I." Clara looked at her children. James crawling on the floor, Lily pretending to read a picture book nearby, and felt a pang of guilt. "You're right. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just come sit with us." Eli pulled her to her feet. "Haven House will still be there tomorrow. Right now your family needs you." She let him lead her to the couch, let herself sink into the warmth of his arms while the children played at their feet. "I just want to help them," she said quietly. "All those women out there alone and afraid. I know what that feels like. I know you do." And you will help them. But you can't pour from an empty cup. Eli kissed her temple. Take care of yourself first. Everything else will follow. Clara nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead, planning, hoping, dreaming. The first woman arrived in October. Her name was Mary, barely 17, with a black eye and a belly swollen with child. She'd walked 3 miles from town after her father threw her out for bringing shame on the family. Clara found her on the porch of Haven House, shivering in a thin dress, her face streaked with tears. "Please," Mary whispered. "I heard this was a place for women like me, women with nowhere else to go." Clara opened her arms. "You're safe now," she said, holding the trembling girl. "You're home." Mary stayed for 6 months. Clara taught her to cook, to sew, to care for herself and her baby. When she finally left to marry a young farmer who didn't care about her past, she hugged Clara so hard they both cried. "You saved my life," Mary said. "No, you saved your own life. I just gave you a place to do it." More women followed. Some stayed for weeks, some for months. Some left to start new lives elsewhere. Some stayed in Silver Creek, finding work and acceptance in a community that was slowly learning to be kinder. Clara helped them all, listened to their stories, shared her own. Showed them by example that the worst moments of your life didn't have to define you. "You're remarkable," Hannah told her during one of her visits. "Do you know that what you're building here, it's changing everything?" "I'm not remarkable. I'm just doing what someone should have done for me." "That's what makes it remarkable." Hannah squeezed her hand. "Most people who suffer want the world to suffer with them. You want to make sure no one else has to feel what you felt. That's rare, Clara. That's beautiful." Clara didn't know what to say. She'd never thought of herself as beautiful or remarkable or any of the things Hannah described. She was just a woman who remembered what it felt like to have no one, and who was determined to make sure other women never felt that alone. 5 years passed. 5 years of growth and change, of joy and sorrow, of building something that mattered. Haven House expanded twice, adding new cabins, a small schoolroom, a chapel where women could pray or simply sit in silence. Doc Crane came by weekly to check on the residents. Mrs. Santos cooked enormous meals that fed everyone, and then some. The ranch hands helped with repairs and maintenance, grumbling good-naturedly about all the extra work. Clara watched it all with wonder, hardly believing this was her life. "Mama, look." She turned to see Lily, 6 years old now, all long legs and wild hair, racing toward her with something clutched in her hands. "What have you got there, sweetheart?" "A bird. I found it by the barn. Its wing is hurt." Clara knelt down to examine the small creature. A sparrow, barely alive, its wing bent at an awkward angle. "Can we fix it?" Lily's eyes were wide with hope. "Can we make it better?" Clara thought about all the broken things she'd seen in her life. All the broken people. All the ones she'd helped put back together. "We can try," she said. "Get some bandages from the house and ask Papa for a small box." Lily raced off, and Clara cradled the injured bird in her hands. Some things couldn't be fixed. She knew that. Some wounds were too deep, some damage too severe. But you had to try. You always had to try. James found her later sitting on the porch with the bandaged sparrow in a box beside her. "What's that?" "A patient." Clara pulled her son onto her lap. At 3 years old, he was all sturdy limbs and serious gray eyes, his father's eyes. Lily found an injured bird. "Will it live?" "I don't know. But we're going to take care of it and hope for the best." James considered this with the solemnity of a child twice his age. "That's what you do, isn't it, Mama? Take care of broken things." Clara's throat tightened. "I suppose it is." "Is that why all those ladies live in the other house, because they're broken?" "They're not broken, sweetheart. They're just hurt. And sometimes when people are hurt, they need a safe place to heal." "Like the bird." "Yes, exactly like the bird." James nodded, apparently satisfied. "I want to help too. When I'm bigger. You will, baby. You already do just by being kind. She held him close, breathing in the smell of sunshine and hay that always clung to his hair. This was why she did it. Not just for the women who came to Haven House, but for her children. So they would grow up knowing that compassion mattered. That kindness counted. That the measure of a person wasn't what they had, but what they gave. Clara. She looked up to find Eli walking toward her, a letter in his hand. His expression was strange, somewhere between shock and disbelief. What is it? This came for you. He held out the letter. From Pittsburgh. Clara's heart stopped. She hadn't thought about Pittsburgh in years. Hadn't thought about Thomas Aldridge or the life she'd left behind. That chapter was closed, finished, irrelevant to the woman she'd become. But apparently Pittsburgh hadn't forgotten her. She took the letter with trembling hands and opened it. The handwriting was unfamiliar, cramped, and formal. Dear Mrs. McAllister, she read aloud, I am writing on behalf of your late father-in-law, Mr. Aldridge Sr., who passed away last month. In reviewing his personal effects, we discovered a sealed letter addressed to you, along with instructions that it be delivered upon his death. The enclosed document is that letter. Please accept our condolences for any distress this communication may cause. Sincerely, Harold Whitfield, Attorney at Law. Clara stared at the second envelope enclosed with the first. Her name was written on it in an old man's shaky hand. You don't have to read it, Eli said quietly. Yes, I do. She opened it. Miss Bennett, the letter began. I know you have no reason to trust anything bearing the Aldridge name. I know my son treated you with cruelty and cowardice that I cannot excuse or explain. I am writing because I am dying and I find I cannot go to my grave without attempting to make amends. I knew about you. I knew about the child. I knew what Thomas did, and I said nothing. I told myself it wasn't my concern, that you were just another foolish girl who should have known better. I was wrong. I was a coward, just like my son. The difference is, I've had years to regret my cowardice, while Thomas has never shown an ounce of remorse. I cannot give you back the years you lost. I cannot undo the pain my family caused you. But I can offer you this. Enclosed is a bank draft for $5,000. It is not payment for your silence or your forgiveness. It is simply acknowledgement that a debt is owed, even if it can never truly be repaid. Use it however you see fit. I ask nothing in return, except that you know at the end, one Aldridge finally saw you clearly. You deserved better than we gave you. I hope you found it. With deepest regret, William Aldridge. Clara read the letter twice. Then she looked at the bank draft. $5,000. More money than she'd ever seen in her life. Clara, Eli's voice was worried. What does it say? Wordlessly, she handed him the letter. She watched his face as he read the confusion, the anger, the gradual softening into something like understanding. His father, Eli said finally. Thomas's father. He knew. The whole time he knew what his son did to me. And he did nothing. Until now. Clara took the bank draft, staring at it. $5,000. He thinks this makes it right. Does it? Clara thought about it. Thought about all the years of shame and struggle. Thought about the nights she'd cried herself to sleep alone and afraid. Thought about the woman she'd become despite everything they'd put her through. No, she said slowly. Nothing can make it right. But this, she held up the draft. This can make something good. What do you mean? Clara smiled the first real smile since she'd opened the letter. I mean, Haven House just got an expansion fund. The new wing opened the following spring. It was called the Aldridge Wing, though Clara never explained to anyone why. She simply said a donor wished to remain anonymous. Let him be remembered for something good, she told Eli, even if he doesn't deserve it. You're more forgiving than I would be. I'm not forgiving, I'm practical. Clara watched the women moving into the new quarters. More space, more beds, more hope. Holding on to anger only hurts me. This way, I turn his guilt into something that helps people. That's a very Clara way of looking at it. It's the only way I know. Lily's bird survived. Clara released it on a warm April morning, watching it flutter uncertainly before finally taking flight. Lily cheered, jumping up and down with excitement. "It's flying, Mama, look." "I see, sweetheart. I see." The sparrow circled once, twice, then disappeared into the bright blue sky. Clara thought about all the women who'd passed through Haven House over the years, all the ones who'd arrived broken and left whole, all the ones who'd found the courage to spread their wings and fly. That was her legacy, not the buildings or the money or the programs. The women, the lives, the hope. On Lily's 10th birthday, Clara sat her down for a conversation she'd been dreading for years. "There's something I need to tell you," she began. "About your father." Lily looked at her with those clear green eyes, Clara's eyes, and waited. "Eli is your papa in every way that matters. He loves you, he raised you, he would do anything for you. But he's not—" Clara took a breath. "He's not the man who gave you life." "I know, Mama." Clara blinked. "You know, I'm not stupid." Lily's voice was matter-of-fact. "I can count. You married Papa when I was almost 1, and people talk. What do people say? That I'm not really a McAllister, that I'm—" Lily hesitated. "That I'm a bastard." The word hit Clara like a physical blow. "Who said that to you?" "Some kids at school, a while ago." Lily shrugged, but Clara could see the hurt beneath the bravado. "I told them to mind their own business." "Oh, sweetheart." Clara pulled her daughter close. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to hear that word." "It's just a word, Mama. It doesn't change who I am." Clara pulled back to look at her daughter, this fierce, brave girl who had survived so much without even knowing it. "No, it doesn't. You are Lily McAllister, daughter of Eli, and Clara McAllister, sister of James and Sarah." She'd had another daughter 2 years prior, a golden-haired angel they'd named after Eli's mother. "You are loved and wanted and precious beyond measure." "I know," Lily smiled. "You tell me every day." "And I'll keep telling you every day until I'm old and gray and you're tired of hearing it." "I'll never be tired of hearing it." Clara hugged her again, holding on longer than necessary. Some hurts never fully healed. Some words left scars that faded but never disappeared. But love was stronger than words, stronger than hurt, stronger than anything. Clara had learned that the hard way. Now she made sure her children learned it too. The letter from Thomas Aldridge came on a Tuesday in September. Clara didn't recognize the handwriting at first. It had been so long since she'd thought about him. But when she saw the return address, her blood ran cold. "What is it?" Eli asked, seeing her face. "It's from him, Thomas." Eli's expression hardened. "Throw it away." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because—" Clara stared at the envelope. "Because I need to know what he wants." "He can't have anything. He lost that right years ago." "I know. But I still need to read it." She opened the letter with steady hands. "Clara," Thomas had written. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I know I have no right to contact you after everything I did. But I recently learned about Haven House and about the work you're doing there. I wanted you to know that I'm proud of you." That's a strange thing to say, isn't it? I have no claim on you, no right to pride in your accomplishments. But I feel it anyway. You've built something beautiful out of the ruins I left behind. You've become someone remarkable, despite everything I did to destroy you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking for anything at all. I just wanted you to know that I see you now. I see who you are, and I'm sorry for everything. Thomas. Clara read the letter 3 times. Then she walked to the fireplace and threw it in. "What did it say?" Eli asked. "Nothing that matters." "Clara." "He said he's proud of me, that he's sorry." Clara watched the paper curl and blacken in the flames. He thinks that changes something. Does it? No. She turned to face her husband. I built my life despite him, not because of him. His apology doesn't make him part of my story anymore. He's just a footnote, a mistake I made when I was young and alone and desperate for love. And Lily. Lily is mine. Ours. She has nothing to do with him except biology, and biology doesn't make a family. Clara took Eli's hands. You make a family. Love makes a family. Showing up every day and choosing each other makes a family. Eli pulled her close. I love you, Clara McAllister. I love you too. She rested her head on his chest. I never wrote him back, you know. After that first letter I sent years ago, I never contacted him again. Do you regret that? No. Some doors are better left closed. They stood together in front of the dying fire, holding each other while the last traces of Thomas Aldridge's letter turned to ash. Some chapters ended not with drama or confrontation, but with quiet acceptance. This was one of them. The 20th anniversary of Haven House was celebrated on a beautiful October day. Clara stood on the porch, looking out at the crowd that had gathered: former residents, current residents, supporters, friends. Hannah had come from Denver with her husband and children. Doc Crane, old now, but still sharp, sat in a place of honor. Mrs. Santos, retired, but refusing to stay away, directed the food service with an iron hand. And Eli stood beside Clara, his hair gray now, his face lined with age, but his eyes still that same storm cloud gray that had captured her heart all those years ago. Quite a turnout, he observed, more than I expected. You underestimate yourself, you always have. And you overestimate me, you always have. He smiled. Balance. Lily approached them, her own baby on her hip. Clara's first grandchild, a dark-haired boy named Eli, after his grandfather. Mama, they're ready for you to speak. Clara looked at the crowd, at the faces of women she'd helped over the years, at the family she'd built from nothing. I don't know what to say. Say what's in your heart, Eli told her. That's always been enough. Clara stepped forward to the edge of the porch. The crowd fell silent. 20 years ago, she began, her voice carrying across the gathering. I was a woman with nothing. No home, no family, no hope. I stood on a frozen train platform with a baby in my arms and nowhere to go. She paused, letting the memory wash over her. A man found me that day. A gruff, quiet cowboy who offered me his gloves because my hands were cold. She smiled at Eli. He didn't know me. He had no reason to help. But he did anyway because he believed that people deserved kindness, especially when they couldn't give anything in return. Clara looked out at the women in the crowd, the ones she'd helped, the ones still healing. That's what Haven House is built on. Not charity, not pity. Just the simple belief that everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves kindness. Everyone deserves a home. She felt tears on her cheeks but didn't wipe them away. I've been asked many times why I do this work, why I spend my days helping women that society has thrown away. The answer is simple: because someone did it for me. Because a rough-voiced cowboy saw me at my lowest moment and said, "Let me hold you both." Because his kindness changed everything. Clara reached for Eli's hand. We can't fix the world. We can't save everyone. But we can save someone. We can offer one pair of gloves on a cold day. We can open one door when all others are closed. We can say, "You're safe now," to one frightened woman and mean it. She squeezed Eli's fingers. That's what Haven House is. One door. One chance. One act of kindness multiplied 1,000 times over. And it started with a cowboy who believed in doing the right thing even when it wasn't easy. Clara looked at her children, Lily with her baby James, with his new wife Sarah, with her books and her dreams. She looked at Hannah and Doc Crane and Mrs. Santos. She looked at all the women who had passed through Haven House and gone on to build lives of their own. 20 years, she said softly. 20 years of hope. and we're just getting started." The crowd erupted in applause. Eli pulled Clara into his arms, holding her tight, while tears streamed down both their faces. "I'm proud of you," he murmured. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. You can do anything." Clara laughed through her tears. "Now who's overestimating?" "Still me. Always me." She kissed him then in front of everyone, not caring who saw. This was her life. This man, this family, this mission. She had come to Montana expecting nothing. She had found everything. Later that night, after the celebration had ended and the guests had gone home, Clara sat alone on the porch of the main house. The same porch where she'd sat 20 years ago, terrified and alone, wondering if she'd made the worst mistake of her life. Now she sat in peace, watching the stars emerge over the mountains, feeling the cool autumn breeze on her face. Room for one more. She looked up to see Eli, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. Always. He sat beside her, handing her a cup. They drank in companionable silence, watching the night deepen. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" Clara asked finally. "Sometimes." "What do you think would have happened if you hadn't found me that day?" Eli considered the question. "I think you would have survived. You're too stubborn to die. But I would have spent the rest of my life alone, frozen inside, just going through the motions." He took her hand. "You saved me as much as I saved you, Clara. Maybe more." Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Eli McAllister." "I love you too, Clara McAllister." They sat together in the darkness, 2 people who had found each other against all odds. 2 broken hearts that had learned to beat as one. Above them, the stars wheeled slowly across the sky, the same stars that had shone on that frozen November night 20 years ago. So much had changed since then. And yet the most important thing remained exactly the same. Love. Simple, stubborn, world-changing love. Clara closed her eyes and smiled. She had come to Montana as a mail-order bride, abandoned at the station with a baby in her arms, and nothing but $17 to her name. She had found a home, a family, a purpose. She had found a man who looked at her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd ever whispered. And she had learned the most important lesson of all, that the darkest moments of our lives don't define us. What defines us is what we do after. What defines us is who we choose to become. Clara Bennett had been broken, abandoned, left for dead. Clara McAllister had risen from those ashes to build something beautiful, and that made all the difference.